Morning, George. Good morning, everybody. This is Saturday Morning with George and Phil. 22 minutes to help you become the best version of yourself. Whether you found yourself out of shape, struggling in a dead-end job, or job transition, we're your hosts, George Murray, up there hiding off camera, Phil Connor, and to help you move from where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow. We're glad you could meet us early on a Saturday morning, and we do encourage questions in the chat, so please put them in. We'll try to answer as many as time allows. Today, it's episode 23, and we're chatting about having a purpose statement. George, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Phil. How are you this week?
Fantastic.
Yeah, as always. So we're on LinkedIn Live, and this show is really just about a specific topic, and we always try to get a great guest that can hit the topic quite well. But before we get started, I want to thank the folks at Thrivent for sponsoring us. You know, the folks at Thrivent and Skip Nelson particularly have been helping people achieve financial freedom. So their topic this month, or this half a month, is really helping you find money. So how many people actually have somebody find money? Boy, I would love to have something like that. Like old 401ks, you know, like when you were 18 or 20 years old, and maybe that's more than 10 years ago, you forgot, hey, I had like $10,000 or $15,000 in a 401k that just kind of floated. That actually happened to me. And the folks at Thrivent can help you find those little buckets of money, especially when you're in career transition, to help you achieve forward. And so I want to thank the people at Thrivent.
I agree. I'm so excited this weekend to get an extra hour's sleep, or George, as I know with you, you won't sleep any longer. You're going to get an extra hour of productivity and enable you to work on your purpose.
Hey, you know, before we also get started, we got a good, we've actually got a special thing right now. We got actually a producer. So we want to thank our producer, Ethan C, to the show. He's going to be monitoring and managing so that I don't have to be off screen all the time looking at the next slideshow and everything. Hopefully have less and less technical difficulties as we progress forward. So we're achieve forward.
So welcome, Ethan. Thanks for your help in making this such a professional presentation today. You know, speaking of presentations, George, when I've given presentations and talked about personal purpose, I've also talked about having a personal purpose, vision, and mission statement. You know, that having those is critical for both personal and professional success. For me, the purpose is your why, your vision's your where you're going, and your mission's how you get there. If you had to reflect on your purpose or your why, what do you think it is?
Yeah, you know what? In my first career transition, all this personal statements and purpose and branding were all new to me because I always thought it was a product or a company, right? Didn't realize that an individual should have all these things as well. And one of the things that I reflected on and looked back, I help businesses and professionals navigate through gaps, whether they're business optimization gaps, career pivot. You know, I'm in a current job, but I'm really not excited about the next few years and what could I possibly do. And then finally, job transition. You know, as we both experienced, job transition could be extremely difficult if we don't have assistance and roadmaps. So what about you, Phil?
Well, I imagine it changes at different times in our lives, right? I think the different seasons of your career, like you said, your purpose evolves. Right now, I truly believe it. For me, it revolves around bringing people together to help them each be more successful. And that's whether in my professional life, bringing service companies together with facility managers, or in my personal networking, helping bring people together so that they can help each other, as you say, get better.
Yeah, no, agreed. You know, one of the things that it comes out of the get better scenario is really competing with the person who you are, because again, you know your skills and your shortcomings better than anybody else. So you want to make sure that you focus. There's actually, I'm sure, probably a couple, maybe 4 or 5 years, I'm going to date myself, but there's this famous picture where Michael Phelps is wearing, I think he's winning his like 8th gold medal, and he's swimming and he's really focused, right? Versus the other person's focused on him, right? And I think that's what happens in a lot of our career pivots as well as our career transition is that we're focused on other things that are totally out of our control instead of what we have capabilities and skills to do. And then focusing on those will be able for you to achieve forward and get better.
I love it. And while we were kind of contemplating this topic, we talked about trying to find somebody in our network or in our community that really found a way to have their purpose resonate for them. And we came up with Dan Walker. So want to welcome Dan to the show. I think we're working through the technical part, but welcome to Coffee with George and Phil, Dan.
Thank you.
Now, you recently experienced, or lack of a better word, an awakening to your purpose. Can you share with our viewers a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd be glad to, Phil. So, you know how in the movies they always make things real dramatic. There's this very specific moment where everything becomes crystal clear. And, you know, in reality, for me, it was more of a series of events. And they were related, but I didn't necessarily recognize that at the time. But there was this series of dominoes that kind of fell for me, one event after another, all in a span of a few weeks and months, kind of toward the beginning of this year. And when I was talking through this with a close connection of mine, what that really was all about and what it helped me do was gain clarity. And part of it was going through a course that I enrolled in. So through that and the experiences of talking about purpose with the other people in the group, you know, I had a lot of realizations there. But really it was the result of things starting to come together over time, things like referrals in my business, that were the result of a lot of work that I had done, networking and otherwise, over a period of months and even a couple of years, where that work started to pay dividends further down the road, both in the successes I was having professionally, but also the satisfaction I got from those conversations. And that helped me grow personally as well. So I hope that's not too vague, but
what did you find your purpose is? What did you end up coming to?
Really, you know, I found out that a big part of my purpose, you know, much like this show that you do, was I had not just a want, but a need to help others. And I experienced a lot going through my transition where I found out, you know, I wasn't unique in that regard. There were a lot of late career professionals like me that were going through a period of struggle that I connected with. And I made it my mission, besides what I had going on professionally from a standpoint of building my business, but also connecting personally with folks in a way that allowed me to help others. And what that did was that helped elevate me. So what I learned from that was when you elevate others, when you lift others up, you lift up yourself just by transition and by the way that it helps you show up.
Yeah, your purpose is not a job title, right? I think that's something that we all kind of get distracted by because we identify so much with a position or a title. And that purpose is really that underlying motivation on what gets us out of bed. I love that, Dan. Thanks you. That's a great summary.
Hey, Dan, I was actually speaking at PSA this past week, and a lady brought up in the audience the marketing pit crew. And I didn't realize that they kind of put it together. That you're kind of one of the founders or the founder, right? So can you help us tell us a little bit more about that and why you felt the need to create something like that?
Sure, George. Yeah, that was about building community, and that's a great segue because it kind of picks up where we just left off in that conversation about purpose. And what happened was there was a group of us that were part of a larger networking organization not from a producing standpoint, but just members of a bigger networking group. But that was super broad. And while we were getting value out of that, we felt this need to have something that was more marketing centric. And yes, it was about job search and assisting people with that transitional process. But really how that came about, it expanded on that, and it became about much more than that. It was initially the brainchild of a wonderful person named Janine Kiger. I've gotten to know Janine quite well through this group that we built together, but she was really the driving force behind it. So there were a handful of us, maybe 4 or 5 initially, that started. This was right in the early stages of the pandemic where everything kind of suddenly shut down. And we went very quickly from a group of, I think there were 12 or 15 of us on our list initially, to 120 plus that were signed up as participants. We didn't necessarily get that many people on every call, but that happened in a span of just a couple of months. And it was about so much more than helping people with the literal part of the job transition. We had regular guest speakers that we brought in. So there was a big learning component to it. And then the other thing that we did was, and continue to do, is we volunteer together once a quarter. So there's a community building aspect to it that we have continued. And we're sort of now going through another transition where we had a big wave initially in participation, and then throughout all the transitions in the marketplace, that's kind of calmed down a bit. So we're trying now to reinvigorate that things for the group on that participation side. But that small group of us that started and got things going, we made a pledge to stay in it. You know, a lot of people think of networking groups as, okay, I'll go through my transition and then I'm out. But this was about staying through that process and continuing to help other people.
Dan, your professional life has been for many years around marketing. So, and it's great that you have built that networking community. But if we come back to purpose today, the topic for today's episode, from a marketing standpoint, why would you think purpose is so important for people to understand?
Because there's no better way to say this than it affects the way we show up. So we attract what we project. And when we're aligned with our purpose, our values, we show up every day and carry ourselves in a different way and project a more confident, positive image. And I'm a perfect example of this. I was in a period right about this time last year, entering into 2021, where I was really struggling and kind of floundering. And when I got more purpose aligned, it was like night and day. I saw immediate effects in everything related to my business. I saw a huge uptick. Now, some of that was the work that I had done to prepare the way, but it was not coincidental. I don't believe that was coincidental, that all kind of dovetailed together to at that, as I was going through that period. One analogy, a way to think about it is, if we think about behavioral scientists and psychologists and the way they talk about dating, if we're desperate, stressed, and insecure, it makes it harder to attract and connect meaningfully with other people. Well, the same is true with marketing or a sales audience. When they can tell when a message or a story is inauthentic and we're just going through the motions, and they will respond or not respond accordingly. So if we're purpose aligned, we project a positive energy, and the work we do and the stories we tell resonate better with our audience. So when we're purpose driven, we naturally move towards telling more authentic human stories, the kind that an audience will want to listen to.
But I think, getting back to the purpose itself, once you clarify that, correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, the purpose actually can evolve and take a life of its own. Like you stated, you created and developed this marketing pit. Now it's a potential, kind of a think tank for small to medium-sized businesses to say, hey, you know what? I can't, pay for a CMO or whatever, but I need a project or I need to launch a new product line or whatever. I can go in and use these folks that are basically on the sideline, have the skill set, they're ready, available, boom, and they can get all this done at a fraction of the price and not have to cover all that cost. So again, isn't it true that your purpose actually could lead you into much different areas as well as maybe a potential even new career?
Yeah, absolutely, George. And I lead on that, and I see that happening, daily. So there's a couple of groups that I belong to, and Pit Group is one. Another is a network very similar to that, but it's about we call it Trusted Business Partners. But there's this group that I regularly interact with, and we know each other's strengths. So when an opportunity comes up, even if that's not squarely in my wheelhouse, I can immediately go, I know the right person for this. And whether it's just a straight referral or whether it's something where a group of us can come together and say, we're going to help solve this business problem for this group. So what happens then is I can say yes to a lot of things that if I was completely on my own and isolated in the way that I was interacting, I wouldn't be able to say yes to those things.
In your journey, Dan, as you were trying to reflect on your purpose, I know you said there was several different events that happened, but if you had to pinpoint one exercise you did or one reflection that you did that you thought was significantly impactful, what would it have been?
This will sound a little strange to people initially, but I went through that program that I referred to earlier was with Laura King, and the title of it was really literally Your Career, Your Life on Purpose. And one of the things that we did when we went through that program was, this will sound odd, but we wrote our obituary. So it's about legacy, thinking about legacy, and how do you want people to view you, and what do you want people to know you for? Is it a job title, or is it?
It's a great exercise.
Much deeper than that. So what do you want to leave behind for your kids, your business partners, what will they think of when they think of George or Phil or Dan? What kinds of qualities and characteristics? Going through that process was really an emotional thing, but it drew out a ton of good stuff.
No, that's great. I have often thought about that, and when that obituary is being read, if there'd be anybody there to hear that eulogy, right?
There's actually an analogy I stated, I think maybe more than a year ago, one of my walks, right, short videos, is that just, we, at the end of our life, we have 8 people that lift us up, right? They pick us up from our casket and they kind of send us out. What would be so important is if we could have those 8 people help us throughout our entire life and career, and, help with us or with our purpose, right?
Well, that's a great point, George, because I think we have often talked on this show about our board of advisors. And sometimes our board of advisors, those people closest to us, can help us understand our purpose that maybe we might be blinded to because we're distracted by the shiny objects in life and the different activities and things that are urgent but not that important.
No, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Hey, Dan.
I saw a post a few weeks ago. It was really interesting. It was by Seth Godin, and he was talking about in his blog about we could have a phenomenal following on social media or however we communicate primarily. And even if we do that, it's still a statistically and mathematically insignificant number. So all this worry that we do about trying to be all things to all people really doesn't amount to a hill of beans. What we want to do is focus on our own special sauce, what makes us unique, and provide value to our audience. And that can be, mathematically a pretty small number, but it can still have impact because of the work that we do and the way that we interact with those folks.
Well, Dan, thanks for joining us today. One last question. We're talking a little bit off stage about finding your zone of genius. Can you elaborate on that and why it's so important related to your purpose statement?
Of course, yeah, that really builds on the point that I was just making. So if we focus in on what makes us unique to not just our customers in a business context, but all of the people that we interact with, and build that throughout our life, not just our career, but our life, that comes back around again and again to benefit us in so many different ways that we can't even see coming at the time. So focusing on what our unique perspective is that we bring to the world, to our customers, to our friends, to our business partners, that's what people are going to remember us for, and that's what's going to have an impact, because it's that human connection component that gets tied into that.
Oh, that's excellent.
Hey, Dan, this show goes so fast. We really appreciate you stopping by and sharing your experience on purpose. And of course, we'll share contact information for those people in either business or professionally and personal wanting to get a little more clarity on their purpose. But we really appreciate your time today.
Thank you. It's been a ton of fun.
Have a great rest of your weekend.
Bye-bye.
Well, this shows go by so fast. It doesn't seem like we get a lot of information in that 22 minutes. We try to keep it to the 22 minutes.
Great content today.
Yeah. I definitely I want to make sure that we recognize Dan Walker for dropping in here. As you said, Dan's kind of created his own purpose, and it's really flourishing. So he's out there helping professionals as well as business. And here's the 3 areas that you guys can get connected with Dan on.
No, and then join us on November 20th, where we're going to be discussing time management. You certainly never know who will stop by for Coffee with George and Phil. So we hope you'll tune in at 8:02 a.m. Central Time, November 20th, because we're always that first and third Saturday of the month. And George, you've also launched a new Hired weekly newsletter. Maybe you want to touch on that.
Yeah, a couple of things. I think it was maybe about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I just created a newsletter. So if anybody's interested in it's helping, either businesses or professionals. I think the last one was really about, what we had talked about just maybe a little over a week ago, is a great realization. And how are you able to turn around and reduce the turnstile that's coming out? So it's always a relevant topic, and we've got also other support functions. So if you're interested, by all means, email myself or at least connect with me on LinkedIn, and we can get you on that list. It's every Monday. It's kind of, get ready, get set, get hired on Monday, right? Even if you're, not in career transition, but maybe contemplating a career. And then the second thing is that over a year and a half ago, and I know that Phil, you are taking it to the extreme this month, is our transformation community. So we've gotten as large as about 60 plus people on this community, and we developed it right before the pandemic. Didn't realize that was the intent, but we just wanted to help people keep motivated, accountable, especially in career transition. We don't have that structured day, so it's important for us to have accountability. What are you doing daily, weekly, monthly in order to move the needle to get you to land faster? So if you're interested in that, by all means, connect with both Phil or myself. We get you locked and loaded on that. And Phil religiously every morning is giving us a video as to what his progression is on his personal health. I think we've lost almost 10 pounds in just the last week.
Had a good week. We're trained like Rocky November, so we're doing some 2-a-day sets and having a lot of fun, getting ready for our winter hibernation here.
Hey, so and the last thing we want to do is we want to thank Ethan, our new producer here on the show. He's in the background. He's making sure that all these things and all the posts and everything else. So when you're making comments and you got questions, by all means, ask them in the chat, and he'll share those so we can read those and answer your questions throughout the show. So again, thanks, Ethan.
Thanks for being
Phil.
behind the curtain. Thank you, everybody. Until next time, have a great weekend. And thank you for sharing your coffee with George and Phil. Remember to achieve forward and
Get better.